particularly what we believe is the unique point of view of this conference, offering great promise and great opportunity for our industry and for our customers. So bottom line, key takeaway, we're all about the relentless, unapologetic pursuit of deliciousness at the intersection of health, sustainability, culture, and innovation. If anybody in the room has not signed up for that, check out another conference. But that's what we're trying to achieve here. For those of you that have been to some of our conferences in the past, you know that our Strategic Initiatives Group, which really looks to provide industry leadership, forms much of our programming around these four key pillars. This program, of course, includes many of those. By way of background, this program really grew out of the Menus of Change program. How many of you have been to Menus of Change in the past? Quite a few of you. Okay, great. Which is coming up again in mid-June. I encourage you all to come. But we started this about 10 years ago with the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, really to look at the tagline is the business of healthy, sustainable, delicious food choices. And there we look a lot at the scientific evidence. We look at the sort of operationalizing Menus of Change principles, the business case scenario. These are many of you know, the 24 principles of healthy, sustainable menus. This is just a couple of recent climate reports. You know, I don't have to tell you how much this is factored into our thinking now. We started this really 10 years ago with Harvard because we were hearing from a lot of folks in the industry. On Tuesday, I go to a meeting on health or wellness. On Thursday, I get dragged into a sustainability meeting. Can you folks try to bring this all together, right? And we've seen how these things converge. Those are the infographic for the principles. If you haven't been on the Menus of Change website, I encourage you to go. We've got tons of great resource material there for training. One of the key pillars of that, of 24 principles, not necessarily all created equal, one of the most important is this around serving less red meat and more broadly the shift from animal-based foods to plant-based foods. Presumably the interest there is why you're all here. Just as a reminder, we know that animal-based foods, in general, have a much bigger environmental impact. Here's the greenhouse gas emission with the animal-based foods on the left and the plant-based foods, for the most part, on the right. Same thing with water. We've seen this story before. Particularly red meat has an outsized impact on water resources. And so what we're looking at is this really critical shift in our industry in consumer dietary patterns. We could call it a protein shift. We could call it a dietary shift. Certainly for those of us in the room, it's all about a menu shift. And what that means is, less dependency on animals, better choices when we do source foods from animals. And there's a lot that needs to be unpacked there, and more plants or all plants, right? And then, as we know, this is driven by personal or planetary health concern or animal welfare issues or some combination thereof. So one of the things that we did a few years back that has really resonated in the industry is this formulation around the notion of plant forward. And, as we define it here, a style of cooking and eating that emphasizes and celebrates but is not limited to plant-based foods, right? And then listing some of the herbs. And we always have to modify that by saying, that reflect evidence-based principles of health and sustainability, because potato chips and soda are also plant-based, and that's not what we're talking about here. Good to have some indulgences, but we're talking about the core of the diet. Another way to think about this is as a big tent, right? So that includes the interest in vegan, interest in vegetarian, but the larger opportunity as well around healthy flexitarian eating. I'm sure many of you work with any number of consumer insight shops, and that's by far the greatest opportunity. People that are either already eating less meat, aspire to eat less meat, have traded down from red meat to other sources of animal-based protein, and looking at the ways in which all of that can fit under one umbrella. And by the way, a given week of eating can include all of those, right? You might be a flexitarian on Monday, you might be a vegan on Tuesday, you might have a vegetarian meal for lunch on Thursday. It all can fit into a healthy, sustainable dietary pattern. And we put a number of resources together to try to kind of capture the business case for this. So this is something that's available on the Menus of Change website, plant forwarded by the numbers, which we did with Harvard. I encourage you to look at that. In the last couple of years, we've teamed up with Data Central to, again, really do a deeper dive into consumer insight here and really look at what the opportunities are. This was the second edition that we did with them in conjunction with our Menus of Change University Research Collaborative as well. I encourage you to read those two reports if you haven't seen them. And we're now working on a third report that will be released in mid-June in Hyde Park at our Menus of Change conference, a number of the questions focused on climate change and consumer attitudes and messaging around the climate crisis. So that's something to be sure to watch for coming up in June. So out of that then came this idea to do this summit, which is Menus of Change, has a broad reach: issues, science, business case scenarios and so forth, best practices. This is really wall-to-wall culinary. How do we make it happen on the plate, in the kitchen? What are the culinary strategies that we need to look at? And by culinary strategy, I'm not talking about just menus and recipes, but something broader. And certainly our aspiration for the chefs in the room and chefs in general in the industry is to be at the table when we're talking about top-level strategy, not the guy at the end of the line when all the decisions that have been made and you get handed off and say, you guys need to come up with some recipes, right? So it goes all the way back to the very beginning conversation about what are we trying to accomplish here and where do we think we have points of leverage. Now, one of the early infographics that we did to support this is called the protein flip. So how do you take the traditional mix of animal-based protein at the center of the plate, a few vegetables around the outside, and just flip that? Or maybe you blend that. A lot of our work with the Mushroom Council and others to create the blended burger, where we replace a portion of the beef with a ground mushroom mixture, teamed up with UC Davis, did published research. Turns out that consumers like that blend as much or more than 100% beef burger. The Beard Foundation ran with us, and it's, I think collectively, this is a pretty known strategy now in our industry. But there are many, many other strategies that are less known and less leveraged. One of the principal strategy, which is why the name Global is in the summit, is because we feel very strongly that there's a lot to learn from traditional plant-based, plant-forward food cultures, from Latin America, Africa to Asia and the Mediterranean. We've been lucky enough to run, some of you have been to our Worlds of Flavor conference series. We've brought talent from all over the world to that program over the years. This is one we did on the Mediterranean. Obviously a great place to look for all things plant-forward. There's a great quote from a friend of mine in Greece who's a leading diet researcher there. She said, she was upset that people were saying, yeah, but you Greeks eat a lot of produce. And she said, we don't like produce any more than you people do, than you Americans do. The reason we eat so much vegetables is because of how we prepare them with olive oil and the different techniques and aromatics that work into the Mediterranean diet. So it's about culinary strategy. We've been lucky enough over the years to have some really brilliant culinary minds inform our various conferences. This is Ileana de la Vega, who's now has a restaurant in Austin, Texas, originally had the landmark restaurant in Oaxaca, sharing her thoughts and insights around plant-forward Latin cuisine. Asia is certainly a huge opportunity, whether it's South Asia or East Asia or Southeast Asia, a lot of opportunity for inspiration. And again, for those of you that have been to some of our conferences over the years, you'll know what that's all about. Very lucky to, you probably recognize this woman from the Venerable John Kwan Sunim from season 3 of the Netflix Chef's Table series, an unbelievable hour-long program on her and her monastery in the south of Korea, which I've been privileged to visit. And she's going to be here, she is here with us, and she'll be speaking tomorrow as an example of where in the world we might look for inspiration. Very grateful to our colleagues at Pomoan who've made it possible for her to join the summit. This is a view of her monastery in the southern mountains of South Korea. Africa, another place of enormous inspiration. We're going to hear more about this conference coming up. This is actually our 24th annual Worlds of Flavor conference coming up at the end of, in early November, bringing a lot of talent. But you think about all the great plant-based, plant-forward cooking of West Africa as an example. Here's someone that's been part of many of our conferences, Pierre Thiam from West Africa. Again, so much expertise to share. In addition to looking at countries and people, we've also looked at sectors of the industry. So, one of the areas that we believe in very strongly is the campuses, college universities. Another is the fast casual sector, and we've done a number of reports now on the plant-forward fast casual watch list, and we did a healthcare watch list. This is another example there. And then I wanted to just mention we're very, very proud of this initiative. It's a partnership with Google in creating a plant-forward kitchen education and certification initiative that is now being launched as a way to really help to retrain workforce development around plant-forward opportunity. And so that will be coming your way soon. And also with the support of the food team at Google, we're launching this fall a Master's in Sustainable Food Systems. If you have folks in your company that would be interested in that, I encourage you to check it out. We're really pleased about that new master's degree offering here at the CIA. And finally, I want to just thank our sponsors for this conference with whom it wouldn't be possible to do this. Our Grand Platinum sponsor, Pomoan and Unilever Food Solutions, our Platinum sponsor, Corn Foods, our gold sponsors, Google, Food at Google, the National Peanut Board, Tyndall, and Oatly, our bronze sponsors, supporting sponsors, our corporate sponsors, and media sponsors. Let's give a big hand for our sponsors who are supporting us. So that's just a quick framing of what we're trying to accomplish here. Really look forward to the conversations we'll have over the next few days. And so before we get started, I want to just make a couple of quick introductions. Introduce Rupa Bhattacharya, who is our new Executive Director of Strategic Initiatives, and you'll be hearing from her throughout the program. And I'm equally pleased to introduce our two very talented program directors who planned this summit, Allison Ryder, our Director of Health and Sustainability Programs, and Jennifer Breckner, our Director of Programs and Special Projects. And with that, I will turn it over to Jennifer. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. I just want to say hello and welcome to everyone. And I just have a couple of housekeeping notes. First of all, in terms of our COVID mask policy, we ask if you are not up to date on your vaccinations that you wear a mask indoors except when you're eating and drinking. And if you are up to date on your vaccinations, you do not need to wear a mask, but if that is your comfort level and you would like to do that, we support you in doing that also. Copia is a big space. You'll be able to find spaces where you can sort of spread out. We will live stream our general sessions in our Napa Valley Vintners Theater, which is just down the hall. So if you want to either put more space between you and other people, you can go watch general sessions there. Or if you also just want to be able to sort of spread out with your laptop and do some work while you're watching, that's an option. And we are going to have some really wonderful weather the next few days. So feel free when you are taking breaks or lunch to go outside and enjoy our California sunshine. And then let's do that. So we do have a Wi-Fi network, and we ask that you hop on there. It's specifically for our conference. It has no password. And you'll be able to follow along in the Bizibo app to get recipes and PowerPoint presentations and speaker bios. And then also, I'm a little quick with the clicker. We love it when you engage with your networks and you share things that you're excited about, photos, that sort of thing. And please use the hashtag CIA Plant Forward. And then my colleague Tom mentioned that about the Food is Life Festival, and so tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. we will have Chef Spike Mendelson, who will do a demo on fresh mushrooms, but he will also join us Thursday night at 5:30 p.m. To screen a documentary that he produced with PBS called The Inn at Little Washington. And this is a documentary that looks at the work of Chef Patrick O'Connell and his iconic Michelin 3-starred restaurant. He will then have a Q&A, and we'll have some wine and hors d'oeuvres. And so you can get tickets at CIA at Copia/Food is Life, and we'd love for you to join us. So now I'm going to hand it over to Rupa to introduce our first session. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hi, everybody. I'm Rupa Bhattacharya. I'm the new Executive Director of the Strategic Initiatives Group, and I'm so excited that you're all here with us finally in person again for this year's Global Plant Forward Summit. We have an incredible slate of presenters. I'm so excited to kick it off with today's first presentation. We've got Chef Shenarri Freeman, who is a rising star chef who's been making huge waves in the Plant Forward community with her vegan restaurant in New York's East Village, and I'm from New York, so this is particularly special to me that we've got other New Yorkers in town tonight. It's called Cadence, and at Cadence, she not only reinterprets soul food's meat-heavier dishes in these really innovative and thoughtful plant-forward ways, but she also has been a tremendous advocate for the actual historical, incredibly plant-based food, soul food recipes that frequently are neglected and undersung as part of the soul food tradition. So today she's going to be demonstrating a recipe for maple collard wraps, and we're so happy to have her here. Please welcome Shenarri Freeman.
Hey, hello. Can you guys hear me? Good, awesome. Thank you for that warm introduction. I'm so happy to be here today. As mentioned, I'm going to be making a collard green wrap. These are going to be stuffed with some bell peppers, onions, leeks, lots of flavor. I chose this recipe because it's something that's very close and near and dear to my heart. I used to make collard greens with my grandmother, so I'm happy to share this recipe with everyone today. So we're going to get right into it. First and foremost, what you want to do is turn the stove on. And I'm going to be using some just simple veggie broth, and I'm going to be adding in some chickpea miso. A lot of the cooking that I do is soy-free. I try to really highlight the vegetables and look at the plant-forward way of cooking. So instead of just regular miso, I'm going to be using a chickpea miso today. So there we go. There we go. Awesome. So I'm going to let that boil a little bit. We're going to whisk in the chickpea miso, and then I'm just going to blanch the collard greens with that. So while that's happening, I'm going to go ahead and start mixing in our other ingredients. So we have some onions to sweat. We also have some leeks, some yellow bell peppers. Then we'll move over to the shiitake mushrooms. Me personally, I like to cook with a lot of sunflower oil or grapeseed oil, just a personal preference. Okay. All right. Sunflower. Great. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and heat our oil up. Get this going. Also, I talk to myself a lot when I'm cooking, so if you hear like weird noises, like it's just me.
Chef, can you explain? Is this guy working? Can you explain why you prefer sunflower oil and grapeseed oil?
For me, it's just like a personal preference. It's something that I cooked a lot with in culinary school. So I went to the Institute of Culinary Education in New York, and I mean, I cook with olive oil as well, but I just prefer like the seed oils. They have like a little bit less flavor. when it comes to cooking vegetables. I don't want the oil that I'm cooking with to overpower the flavor of the vegetables or the foods that I'm making.
I would also love to know, you're using onions and leeks. Is there a particular flavor that you like to get from both?
Yes, so I love most of the cooking that I do. I usually cook with just onions and garlic in pretty much everything that I cook. It might just be like a southern thing. I am from Virginia, so I love onions and garlic in most of the cooking that I use. But the leeks here are more so to add a little bit more flavor, because onions could be a very overpowering. All right, some onions. And I'm just gonna let these sweat a little bit with a little bit of salt, just to get some color on there. Also, when I cook collard greens, my grandmother taught me to wash them off with a little bit of sugar. This is gonna help remove some of the bitterness from them, and it also helps clean them. So that's like a nice little kitchen trick that I still use to this day. In my experience, I realized that, learning from home and learning from your parents and your family, and then going off to culinary school, there's a lot of different things and techniques that kind of differ. So I really encourage everyone to learn things from home, learn things from your elders and your family members, but also kind of like apply those things as you're moving out into the world. All right, so I have my broth boiling. Just gonna add a few collards in there. We'll just do like 2 for today. Add those in. Got those sweating a little bit.
I got some notes.
And it's like a very simple and quick recipe, which is why I chose it, but it's also delicious. I think vegan and plant-based foods have like this type of stereotype that things are bland, or you can't get flavor, or you can't get that meaty texture, but it's not true. It's not true at all.
Can you talk a little bit more about how you incorporate reinterpret soul food with vegan ingredients?
So I've been vegan and plant-based for the past 7, I believe, going on 8 years. And when I first started this journey, I was just kind of looking for food that I could eat. I was living in DC at the time. There wasn't that many vegan restaurants, and if they were, I wasn't, I didn't really care for what they were offering. So for me as a chef, kind of getting into cooking and getting into this world, I wanted to create foods that people could love and feel like they're not compromising with texture and flavor. So I think going the route of vegan soul food and Southern food, it's very home for me. And I think that's something that a lot of people could relate to, because soul food itself is like very filling. It's very flavorful. It's meat heavy, but when you look at the history of the cuisine, the vegetables were originally the star. Meat was something that later on throughout the times was more so of a reward. But in today's world, things are kind of switched over. So I'm kind of bringing back that original approach to the cuisine where vegetables are the star. All right. So right now I have some onions, leeks, peppers. We now have the shiitake mushrooms in here as well. Just letting that sweat a little bit. Some more salt. And this cooks very fast, so you don't have to let it overcook. That's the fun thing about cooking with vegan and plant-based foods. Things don't have to cook as long, which is fun. All right, so then that cooked down a little bit. All right. And for the collards, you just want to get a little bit of color in there. The main goal here is to kind of get that flavor of the chickpea, miso, and the veggie broth into the collards, and make sure that they aren't like super tough when you're going to eat them, because that's just not fun. So you're not cooking them like a traditional collard green. You're just kind of doing like a quick blanch on them to get some flavor in there. All right. So that's going. All right. And a lot of times when I make this recipe, I actually add in rice. That's going to make it like a little bit heavier, but it is spring, summertime. We're going into the hotter months, so people tend to eat a little bit lighter. So I kind of skip over the rice today. But you know, if you're making this recipe at home, you can definitely add in some rice to kind of give it like a heartier, fuller filling.
And is this something you serve at the restaurant?
I used to have this on the menu. I took it off, but I think I'll be bringing it back very soon. We just recently moved to a bigger space, so we have a little bit more space with the kitchen as far as like things we're able to make and production. So I think I'll bring this back. Believe it or not, my restaurant is only 12 seats. So it's very small, but we've done a lot in just a year.
And the new space is bigger?
Yes, the new place, we're going to have about 60 seats.
Oh, wow.
So
Congratulations.
I'll be a regular restaurant, I guess. All right, so I just added in some Aleppo chili peppers. This is going to add like a nice savory feel to it. Again, just kind of like cooking and sauteing this down. Slow and steady kind of wins the race here. I don't like to overcook vegetables. That's when we kind of get into the way of actually cooking out the nutrients. So just doing like a nice, simple saute here. And as we all know, taste as you go. All right, so. Okay, you know, whatever wants to get on the spoon.
And then if you get locked out,
You want to do a little bit more salt?
and then, yeah.
Maybe a lot more salt. All right, thank you so much. So while that's going, I'm going to go ahead and start on my sauce for this. So I'm just doing like a very simple maple balsamic jus. Sometimes in the vegan world with things, it's not what it seems. So in the vegan world, we call this a jus. So just going to add in some maple into my pot here. And I'm going to reduce that down to make it a little bit thicker. And this is going to be our sauce for our collard wraps. And I came up with this actually on accident, but it's one of those accidents that kind of worked out. So I've been running with it ever since. All right, so collard greens are looking very tender here. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and remove those. Awesome. All right. And then for this part, I'm just gonna simply burn my fingers. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of spread this out a little bit while I continue to burn my fingers. Okay, there we go. And this, then once the filling is ready, we're going to place that into the collard wraps, roll it up, and eat. All right, so that is there. And these look just about ready. I think also a fun thing about cooking plant-based foods is just like experiencing all of the different colors on your plate. That's like one of my favorite things about cooking in general, but I try to make very colorful, like exciting dishes. So any chance that I have to put like a pop of color in there, I will. Even if it's just like microgreens or like when it comes to the plating, finishing off with small things like peppers or like roasted chickpeas. That's always like a great idea just to add a little bit of extra color to your plate. All right, so these are pretty much done. Like I said, it's just a light saute. All right. Okay, turn that one off. So that's just an example of how I would usually do the collards. I actually have some already here that we made a little bit earlier, along with the filling. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually wrap these ones.
So, like this, all right?
Right,
Like this, all right?
thank
So one
you.
goes in. If it locks, just go two, and pound or
Okay.
something like that. Let me see whether it goes.
So this is how it looks.
Okay, let me see
Voila.
whether this. Okay.
And this is our filling. So here you want to take like, I would say about a tablespoon. You don't want to stuff it too much, but then it's gonna fall out, which is not fun. So just gonna take like a little tablespoon right there, and just a simple roll. I start by grabbing the top of the leaf, kind of scrunching in the filling, scooting that back, and then you start your roll. Then you want to pull the sides in like that, and continue the roll. The size of this wrap will vary just depending on your batch of collard greens, so I wouldn't be too concerned about that. All right, same thing for this one. You want to pull that back, turn in the sides, and then do a roll, just like that. So for instance, these are like two different sizes, but it does not matter. Do you have another whisk? Another whisk? Thank you. And our sauce is just like reducing down a little bit. Smells really good. All right. Oh my gosh, so good. Okay. Thank you so much. So our sauce is pretty much done. I'm gonna go ahead and turn that off. All right, so we're gonna put a little bit of sauce into here. All right, put that down. And the fun part, of course, is plating. Everyone loves to plate. So we're gonna take our wraps, and I've plated this like many different ways. I think it just depends on how you're feeling. You can do it in the center, you can do it on the side. If you wanna get really creative, you can go and put like 20 around the rims, however you're feeling. And we also have some edible flowers here. Just like I said, we're gonna kind of brighten up the plate a little bit, just to make it fun and super pretty. All right. And then we're gonna put our sauce on the side. And this is our very simple collard green wraps with some maple balsamic jus on the side.
Beautiful. Thank you, Chef. We've got time for a couple of questions if you're down to answer.
of course.
A few things. I'm curious because you said that this is a happy accident. Can you talk a little bit about where you get your inspiration for vegan new dishes?
A lot of my inspiration comes from my family. Most of the things that I cook are things that I grew up eating, some of my mom's recipes. I come from a very big traditional Southern family. My mom is one of 9. I have like 22 first cousins, and we always eat. We eat a lot. Every Sunday there's like family dinners. Every Christmas for like the past 36 years we've been doing like this huge family brunch at my mom's house. So I've been cooking, or at least around food, all of my life. So it's kind of tapping into those childhood memories, things that I grew up eating. Culinary school, of course, traveling, living in New York. I think we're so spoiled when it comes to food. All of these things kind of tie into the food that I create. I'm a very visual person, so even if I see something and I'm not sure what it is, it's gonna inspire me to cook something, and I might kind of apply my own twist to it.
can you talk a little bit about, if there are other questions, I'm happy to, there's a microphone that we can pass as well. Otherwise, I'm going to keep asking questions because I have so much I want to know. Yes, please.
So coming from like the Southern background, how did you decide to put like miso and balsamic together?
I think that kind of came along with culinary school. I learned about a lot of different misos in culinary school. I started falling in love with my sauce classes in culinary school as well. So I make a lot of my own sauces. I do a lot of salad dressings. We make like all of the sauces at our restaurant. So I think just kind of getting creative and not being afraid to, I guess, like cross those boundaries where things wouldn't traditionally go together, I'm gonna do it because I'm adventurous when it comes to my food. And if it tastes good, you know, who's to be upset?
Do we have more questions in the audience? I would love to hear a little bit more because one of the things that, I mean, Greg mentioned it earlier as well, and you'll see it in the next demo, is one of the things that we really want to make clear is that vegan and plant-forward food doesn't have to be bland, which has been the stereotype for so long. And I would love to hear more about your approach to seasoning and how you sort of think about how things should taste.
I think my approach to seasoning and just food in general is, you know, again, taking those flavors and things that I grew up eating and loving so much, taking everything that I've learned in culinary school. I had, you know, Indian World Cuisine Day, we did Asian World Cuisine Days, Mexican, and just kind of tapping into a lot of other different cultures. And I think food is something that ties everyone together. When you start looking at food in different regions, even when you're eating seasonal, you'll see how similar we all are when it comes to food. I think one of my favorite things that's universal is rice. A lot of different cultures have rice, but we all cook it differently. We all apply different seasonings to it, different cooking techniques. So when you really study food and you study different cultures, different flavors, seasoning, you're gonna see just how similar we all are. So for me, it's just kind of stepping outside that box, going to try different cuisines, traveling a little bit, and then taking what I've learned and tried and applying that to my food and my culture.
Very cool. Thank you, Chef. Do we have any other questions in the audience? Yes.
With the rice, you said sometimes you add rice to it. So how would you add it to this dish that you didn't show us today?
Okay, so for this, I would just cook the rice on the side, just like a traditional brown rice or white rice, however you would like to cook it. I use a vegan butter, maybe with a little bit of palm oil. And then I would add that rice into the sauteed veggies. So I would add a little bit more Aleppo chili peppers. It's gonna make like a nice buttery filling, and kind of just toss that with the vegetables and the peppers, and then I would add that into the collard green wraps.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chef. It's really been a pleasure having you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And for all of you, all of the wraps will be served at tomorrow's reception, so you'll definitely get a chance to try them then. So thank
Yes.
you so much, Chef. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
Thank you.
And so now that we've made you